Yes, tell me your name.
My name's Kaniso. I just had a question. You were talking about Obama and his foreign policy when it comes to drone strikes and everything.
Yeah.
So, can you just speak a little bit about how the anti-war movement, like when they were very active during the years of Bush, when they first went in Iraq and Afghanistan, why do you think they're not as active now when it comes to Obama and these drone strikes?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Look, the anti-war movement was a huge majority of the country. I know I went through the demonstration in Washington, January 16, 2003, and I was at the famous march on the National Mall. The King spoke out, and 4 million people. This filled the mall, and buses were 350 people. And we all realized, hey, we're not the minority. We're the majority. So it was a huge movement. I could have done a lot, and it almost succeeded internationally in preventing the Iraq War. It was only because America is such a rogue state and so fanatical that they wouldn't even accept being voted down by the UN, and no element of truth could pervade. And one of my students who took more courses with me than any student has ever taken in the graduate teacher Connie Rice, unfortunately lacks a moral compass. And Cheney and Bush lacked moral compasses and Rumsfeld. So they had aggressions and tortures. They're really big-time war crimes. But the anti-war movement, although this was said, I've spoken at a number of anti-war rallies about this and how organized on this thing. It was demoralized by not being able to stop the war. And one of the points about this is it's really good never to get too high or too low. In other words, things, even when they're awful, are not as bad as it seems. There are other possibilities. One can go on. And when it seems like you're on top of the world, it ain't so good. There's something going to come up. Because you can't change things that easy, and nothing changes in a magical way. And what you accomplish in life, what one accomplishes in life, is limited. The American Revolution freed the slaves after 25, 30 years in World War. That's pretty good. Now, in Haiti and Venezuela is better. They freed the slaves faster, particularly in Haiti. But even there they have problems. As you probably know, Haiti hasn't been the greatest success story in the hemisphere because America has been the deadly enemy of Haiti forever. Black folks making themselves free, that does not please the United States. It doesn't fully Bush. So a lot of people then went into the Kerry campaign with the hope that if Kerry was elected, some minimal amount of sanity would be restored to American foreign policy. And of course, Kerry was not elected. It's actually the case that on voting machines that do not leave a paper trail, the election was switched. Bush got a lot of votes. I don't actually think he ever won either of those 2 elections myself. So anyway, along comes Barack, and Barack's really, he's against the Iraq war, although he says it's a dumb war. It's an unjust war. It's an aggression. No. And he said, because the Democrats are trying to get themselves elected, and we have $1 trillion expense every year on the military, and you're not going to get to be president if you attack us. Right? Barack is a really good human being. I mean, I've read things from my father, and I was saying, I have never unambiguously liked an American president, but I grew up in Pakistan, and I identify a fair amount with a lot of these, what Barack describes about himself in Indonesia with his mom. And, I think he knows all sorts of things. I think that he has a much greater understanding than any of the rest of them, including the new bosses. I won't try to illustrate this, but say that. So, anyway, but he had the position, I'm going to fight the good war in Afghanistan. And then he held up for 6 weeks, but the McChrystal, the general, gave a statement in Paris saying, I need 40,000 more troops. And they were hammering him, and he always gets hammered to the right. So he wanted to get elected, so he surged. Now, I think the surge did nothing. And we actually sent 100,000 troops. They don't tell you we sent 70,000 mercenaries. So actually we have 7 mercenaries in Afghanistan for every 3 regular troops. So if we look at Barack, he is the head of the empire. He's going to do some bad things. Now, the fact is, I'm a lot happier to be protesting the drones, even though I think what we're doing is hideous, than Mitt Romney. He was all set to bomb Iran. Bomb, 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 bomb. That was McCain. Right? So, I'm pretty happy Barack be president. On the other hand, I think it's very important to criticize this, and I think Occupy made Barack be Barack again. And I think that if we don't fight to keep Social Security and health care and so on, that Barack is entertaining selling out on that issue a bit, which doesn't mean he would do what Romney did, which is privatize it all. But it does mean that he might move. And I think that Barack is a lot better a second term, and he's stronger a second term. But what he said when he was running, which was also true, is he would be good if we were good. If we did something, he'd do something. If there was a movement, he would be good. So I take it myself. It's why I read a blog, and actually I'm going to pass this around. Anybody who'd like to get my blog, you give me their email, and I give you mine. And the other thing is, any of you want to come here, I would be happy to hear from you. And I mainly teach graduate students, but even meet with you. So just say name and email. Do or don't fill it out, but if you're interested, do, and pass it around. I think we have to have a movement. That's the main. Would you like to follow up on that?
I mean, I guess I was just kind of surprised, I guess, because, I mean, our foreign policy here, when compared to Bush and Obama, it's really similar in the sense it's very hawkish, it's very aggressive. It's not like we're defending ourselves. So I just wanted to show you that.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I've been around for a long time, and I've been a revolutionary all my life. And I'm a nonviolent revolutionary now. I wasn't always. And I would just say that Barack Obama being the American president takes my breath away. And what I used to say about it is just like, it was like we were in, if any of you read Lord of the Rings, it was like we were in the mines of Moria and we just lost Gandalf. And having Obama as president is being like on Earth on a bad day. Yes.
Mr. Gilbert, I'm excited about this book.
Thank you.
I want to follow up on the question, on the statement you made in your last response about you being a professor and organizing students
Yeah.
around these types of issues or others. What are you seeing in terms of today's professors and organizing on campuses amongst students and having an impact beyond campuses? Are you seeing student protests in relationship with professors happening now or not?
This is a great question, and I've been active in Occupy, and there are several professors who are in Occupy. And Occupy is a very democratic organization, as are most of the organizations in Europe, in Spain, and Greece, and in Arab Spring. And there's the Uruguay. And one of the things about it is that no group of professors can do more than talk. And the truth is that the movement will be made now, like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and SDS, will be made, and Occupy, will be made by young people, often people who are not students, but students as well, who will take up the cause of changing things for the better. And I think that there are professors who want to do this, and on my faculty there are quite a number who are interested in this. We don't have the biggest student movement on this campus, but we do have students who try to do things about important issues. And maybe I could say one thing about it. Tracy Peters, when I met her, told me the following story. She was a student at Boulder when Captain Nichols, who had Nichols Hall, who had fought at Sand Creek, that is to say, massacred children. Hall was named for him. And they protested, and they got it renamed after 3 years, Cheyenne Arapaho Hall. And you can Google this story, and it's a pretty impressive story. And we should do that all over. I mean, it's too bad that happened in 1989, 1990, something like that. And here we are, nearly 24 years later, we ain't going further. But that's because the stories aren't fully shared and the good things don't get around. And that's one of the great things about Occupy. All over the country, there are a lot of people who wanted the stories to go around and wanted everybody to hear them. So I can't say that the student movement was a main part of the anti-war movement. There were a lot of students who participated, but unlike the movement against the Vietnam War, which was centrally students, and also, I should say, people who went into the army, so particularly black people who fought back against it. But there wasn't, there was a less of a student movement recently. But I'm always surprised. I was just talking with a guy at UC Davis, Harry Kelman, who wrote a book on Sand Creek. He was through here. He used to teach at DU. And he was talking about the student movement in Davis. And he said there were 2 graduate students in the history department who were fighting back at Davis. And Davis is the place in California where, you may remember this cop, Pike, came around and he sprayed the students who were sitting there peacefully in the face with tear gas. And it was particularly a betrayal because Pike had been hanging around with the students and they'd all been friendly with him. So he's gotten fired, and he should have been fired. And the chief of police has gotten fired. But the person who should have been fired was the head of the university, Linda Cathay, and she's refused to go. And Harry wrote a thing saying, he was one of the faculty members for our report, she should resign over this. Right? You can't make this better. And there was a lot of pressure. She had to walk through all the students for about 3 blocks to get to her car. And it's called the Walk of Shame. And deservedly so. Well, if you ask me about history students, and he said this to me, history professors, they have a thing now about not being political. So if you say what I said, I've gotten very good reviews among historians, and there's some famous historians like Nash who are on my book. But they're not rushing in to say, oh boy, this is a great story, even though I praise all of them and they built up to it. But the students, that's why I say, you might think it's somebody else, but we are the ones we have been waiting for, right? So I think we can all contribute.
Dr. Gilbert, I appreciate it. That's our time. We've got to get over to our next session, but if we can give Dr. Gilbert a round of thanks.
One of my book is out there, and I can sign it unless she's happy on it.
And if anybody wanted to stay and ask any additional questions, please feel free to do so. But we're going to get ready to head over. They're waiting for us in the law school right now. Yes.
All right.
I'm Jim Hoffmeister. I'm with the Interfaith Alliance of Colorado. And if any of you are interested in working as an intern or would like to find how you might fit into that organization, we would be delighted to have your input.